and welcome to my nightmarish excuse for a laboratory, namely my home office. On the desk today we have a Tektronix 2465B scope, arguably the finest analog oscilloscope ever made. This is a 400 MHz behemoth with 4 channels. When new in the late 80s and early 90s, the base price of this scope was $13,045, about $31,000 today. The computational and measurement features built into the scope were revolutionary when the 2465B was introduced. It's truly a beautiful classic and perfect for any person working in audio or video to this day. The 2465B is also the last easily serviceable Tektronix scope. So why is this beauty on the desk for work? Because the capacitors inside of it are 36 years old and they need replacement. These include some safety capacitors by Rifa, which when they blow create a stink that makes a fish market on a 100-degree day smell positively wonderful. They are well past their useful life. So every cap in the power supply will be changed, and we will take a good hard look at the logic board as well. Finally, there's a non-volatile memory chip in here with a built-in battery. This is a 36-year-old unit and the battery was only expected to last 10 years. We'll replace the chip and I'll share the story of what I had to do to get a replacement chip. Time to get busy. Welcome to the front plate of the Tektronix 2465B. As you can see, we do have 4 channels along the bottom here. We have a series of knobs to control the CRT-based analog display, and we have a computational section here and a cursor section here. As you can see, the volts and timing are not labeled with measurements the way you'd see on an older scope like the 465B, which I also have one of and which we will see later on in this video for a special feature. Let's have a look at it. Like I said, it's been 36 years since this baby's been made. The serial number is in the 50,000 series, which is the second series of internals here. So we will see some surface-mounted devices when we open up the unit, and some of the more notoriously failing electrolytic caps on the logic board will be replaced with things that don't fail so easily. However, the power supply, we won't be as lucky. And as I said, we have Rifa caps in there. So, time to power it up. Well, here goes nothing. As you can see, the scope goes through a bunch of boot routines where various lights flicker, indicating that things are being diagnosed. On the bottom here, you see the voltage scales for channels 1 and 2, which I have active, and the time scale, which is currently set to 500 microseconds. Now, I'm going to plug in a signal generator, which has 4 volts at 1000 hertz on both channels. And we have a notoriously loose cable here. I did check the scope and I'll prove that the scope works fine by switching channels. The cable is a little goofy, so what I'm going to do is later on in this video we're actually going to make a new cable for direct connection on the oscilloscope. One of the cool things about this is you can actually choose your coupling, DC, AC, ground, etc., but you can choose your DC coupling between 1 megohm and 50 ohm coupling, so you don't need to put an adapter on for many 50 ohm applications. We also have some abilities here which are sort of unique. By the way, the flickering you see on the screen is an artifact of the differing frame rates and refresh times of the scope versus the video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit measure, and then I'm going to hit number 1, which is frequency. It's going to measure the frequency on channel 1. 998. For a cheap Chinese function generator feeding at 1000 Hertz, that's not a bad measurement. One of the things it does do is it tends to change to a standardized volts per division. It took it up from 2 to 1. If I go to 500 millivolts, you see, and we can go back and reposition it. You can also do other measurements too, like you could actually measure your voltage, as you see up there. And let's just hit the voltage measurement. And it's going to tell us that the peak-to-peak voltage is 3.98 volts, which matches up fairly well to the 4 volts that I'm feeding in. We're not going to spend a lot of time doing this because we're going to spend a lot of time opening this sucker up and doing the guts. The only thing I want to do is I want to turn off channel 2 for a second here, and I want to do delta time. As you can see, there are now 2 dotted lines. That is your scope. I'm going to put the peak of it on this one, and then I'm going to adjust this one here to get exactly one whole wave. And as you can see, we're coming up to 990. If I adjust carefully with these both on the exact peak, we're getting an exact measurement of 1000 microseconds. That's 1 kilohertz. So if I did both together, 1 over delta T, it'll give you the measurement in kilohertz. In 1989, that was advanced technology. So we're going to open up this scope, tear it apart, and start putting in new capacitors. It's going to be a fun ride. Off with the scope and on with the work. Okay, the time is here. We're going to begin disassembling and rehabbing this Tektronix 2465 scope. I'm going to start at the back, and I'm going to undo the cord so I can get to screws. And then we are going to begin disassembly in earnest. Back cover comes off, and then what we're going to do is move the handle up and push the scope out of the case like so. Now, the first thing I'm going to show you is the logic board. And as I told you before, this particular scope dates to 1989. And even still, it's one of the later scopes. I'm going to zoom in. And here we have the logic board of the scope. As I said, this dates to 1989. And as a matter of fact, on the Dallas non-volatile RAM chip, you'll actually see the date, 89 right there. 19th week of 89 is when that chip was made. So it's a good 36 years old. And these things were meant to last 10 years, and they carry the configuration for the scope. We have a couple of tiny electrolytic caps. They don't look bad, but we're going to change them just to be safe. I've got more than enough. I've ordered every cap that I could find for this scope in the service manual, which I will show you later. To get in here, it looks like it's 6 ribbon cables and 4 torque screws to lift out the logic board, which we will need to do in order to unsolder this. Now let's dig in a little further and let's go inside the unit itself. First thing, you'll see the power supply board right there. And on there is a big fat warning that there are capacitors with a huge amount of potential on them. Now I'm going to whip out my capacitor discharge tool. This I handmade based on a design from Mend It Mark. And I'm going to check this. This scope has been off for 2 days. I'm going to hook up leads to it. I have a little spike on the end, but that's on the end of a banana plug. And I'm going to hook up test leads to this and touch inside to make sure that we don't have any capacitor charge remaining. We'd like to live through this experience. Before I even get it out, you can see there are a huge number of electrolytic caps, including the ones that I'm going to check for charge right now. There are many ways you can check for. That one has no charge on it. Let's try this one. That also has no charge on it, but just for safety, I'm going to press the button just to be safe. And that provides rapid discharge. So even the tiniest amount of voltage, which would be under 5 volts if you don't see either the light or the numbers. But now we know that the charge has been removed and the unit is safe to remove. Okay, I've gotten the board out of the scope. So let's take a quick tour. We have 2 REFA capacitors right here. And I'm going to have to bring the board up to the camera to show you this. I'm going to turn it around so that it's right side up for you guys. There you go. Can you see the cracks in it? It's starting to give. On the other side, it's even worse and is bulging. This one is also showing its age. And both of these are going to have to come out because they're useless. We're also going to change all 7 of these guys, all of these little guys, and then let's peel the boards apart and see what's on the inside, because if you look over here, we've got a boatload more caps, including some REFAs and some big old bypass caps that are 36 years old, and they're getting all changed out. One thing I have noticed is that none of these caps look so bad here. I don't see any leaked out electrolyte, and I don't see any problems that way, which is good. I need a smaller torque screw for that. This is a 20. Let's grab. Whoa! We have another REFA right here. And this one is also bulging like it's going to blow up. Let's take a look around. I'm going to turn on the old voltmeter and do some checking just for safety's sake. Let me pull these out of the well, actually, let me keep them in the discharge tool and check real quick here and make sure that we're not holding any charge here, because Mrs. Tinkers would like me to be around a little bit longer and provide a paycheck, because I've got a day job. Now, if you guys fund me the same way that YouTube has funded other small YouTubers like Mr. Beast, things might be different. But right now, I work for a living. So let's have a peek around here. We are going to have to separate these boards, and under here we have the big capacitors, the bypass caps. Good news, we have the two principal boards separated from the intermediary heat shield, which is very well insulated. It's a very thin piece of aluminum with heavy plastic insulation on both sides. So what we're going to do now is we're going to begin preparing to desolder. And when we hear a noise that could wake the dead 6 states away, we know that my desoldering tool is ready to go. That is our soldering station saying it is ready to start sucking away solder. First thing I'm going to remove is, of course, a refa. The thing you got to remember is just to keep it on there long enough to melt the underlying solder. When you see it go shiny and flexible, then you pull the trigger. See how busted up it is? If I would have left this in here any longer, we would have run into the, holy crap, we would have run into the Explodo situation and we would have had fish market stink. Here's the original and here's the replacement. And yes, that is also marked Refa because Chemet bought Refa. This is the correct replacement and it goes and it will last longer than this one. We should get at least another 36 years out of it, which means that I will be approaching triple digits in age and I'm probably not going to be concerned about it anymore. Soldering iron. Get something with a JBC 245 or 210 style tip when you're a starter. I recommend Yiwa second, but Eichson is my first choice. If you go and win your state lottery, please, oh please, go get a real JBC or Metcal. So let's clip these off and we have our first capacitor replaced and it's a stink bomb. No more. And here we have the first board of the power supply with all the caps that are going to be changed out. The two large blue ones on the right. I couldn't really find axial capacitors that would fit in at this point with the correct capacitance and voltage. So I decided to check them. They check out and I'm going to leave them for now. Everything else is changed. Let's take in a little bit more of a zoom here because I would like to show you something. You can see that we got the safety caps. There's one here, which I'm trying to focus. There's one here. There's a third one there hidden. And we got that one too. The safety caps were important because they were croaked. You see here the pile of dead caps removed. If you take a look at the one on the screen, you can see the crack in that that cap. You take a look at it, you can see just how badly that was capped. It was ready to pop. And we replaced that guy. The others were comparably bad. So now we're going to take care of the second board of the power supply. Okay. Okay, we have the card put back into the scope and all the wires connected. Later on, I'll tell you a little bit of a story about why there's that big blue wire hanging out there. Basically, the voltage selector switch had a lug that attached to the top card. That lug broke off. So in order to get it fixed, I soldered a wire onto the board and I connected it into the voltage selector switch. Now it's time to test everything and see whether or not we produce magic smoke. Okay, we have power going into the unit and we're ready to test. Well, here goes nothing. We hear the fan firing up, which is great news. And we are looking at what appears to be a normal, yep, that is a completely normal fire-up procedure. And we see 2 traces for channels 1 and 2. Let's adjust those, move them up. And I'm going to bring up the other 2 channels, make sure they all come up. And they do. I'm going to turn intensity down a little bit. So far, so good. Let's put some signal in and make sure that the scope continues to run. Okay, as you can see, we have signals going in channels 1 and 2. Let's just adjust. We'll do a quick check with add mode, looks good. We'll invert and do add mode. We should get a flat line, and we do. Looks even better. Let's hit calculate, and we will measure frequency. And it measures 999.3 for a 1000 hertz wave. That's pretty good. Let's turn this back to 2 volts. So far, so good. Let's turn off channel 1 and let's adjust channel 2. It's 500 millis. Looking good. Let's take it back down to a volt and then down to 2 volts. Let's 500 mics, 1 millisecond per division, and let's do a horizontal position to make sure. And this scope appears to be dead on in cal. Now, will it stay that way? By the way, I apologize for hand holding the camera, but I just didn't have the time to put up the tripod. We're running late with this video as it is. So the next step is to turn off the scope. Ooh, that's interesting. Let's do that again. Make sure it boots up correctly, and it looks good so far. Yep, let's turn on channel 1 again just for kicks. Yeah, that looks good so far. But when we hit the power button, it's sticky. It is sticky on power off. That we're going to have to fix. So let me take a peek at that and see what I can do. Never mind, found the issue. The problem was that the scope was sitting down without a case on top of my mat, and the mat has ridges at the back, and they were pushing up against the scope power and causing the problem that we observed. Jacking up the back on a piece of plastic fixed the problem. So now we're ready to get on with the next part, replacing the memory chip. Okay, moment of truth time. We have to replace this guy. The Dallas 1225Y non-volatile RAM chip. It's basically volatile RAM with a battery built into the chip. So I'm going to take the logic board out of the scope, which is going to require disconnecting half a dozen ribbon cables and unscrewing the board from the scope. We only have 2 little electrolytics that need to be replaced. That's a trivial thing. The hard part is this. We have to take the chip off of the board, which requires unsoldering 28 pins, and then we have to read it into my computer, and then we're going to write a new chip, which we got from Mauser, and I'll tell you the story about that, and then reinstall that in here. To make it easier, I'm going to put a socket. But this chip is pretty thick, so your first thought might be, well, how is a socket going to work? Well, the socket will work because I measured it. I made sure that with the chip on it, the socket would not force the chip to scrape up against the case when the scope is closed up. And it won't. So I think we're ready to get busy. We have 5 of the ribbon cables out, but now I want to spend a few moments talking about this guy. As you can see, that's not a normal ribbon cable. That is a flexible PCB from 36 years ago. We're going to have to be careful with this one. I've got all but the last one out. I've got the screws all undone, and now I'm trying to figure out how to remove this sucker without doing any damage. My first thought was to get something under it right here in this little slot, which I think I can show you by tilting up. There's a slot right there, and prying up on the connector. What I don't want to do is have any sort of tugging force come on this. Jared over at Near Far Media was working on a similar scope, and it had one of these flex PCBs to connect front panel knobs just like this one. The trouble was, he broke it. Luckily, Jared is a genius when it comes to designing printed circuits, and he was able to do something. Now what I'm trying to do is get a little bit of lift on this so I can get it out without damage. By the way, before I do any more, that is a static bracelet connected to an earth ground on my Tektronix linear power supply. Yes, I am a complete Tektronix head. I've got multiple Tektronix scopes. You'll see another one here shortly. I have multiple Tektronix TM500 series mainframes filled with multimeters, signal generators, and power supplies. Plus I have the big linear power supply. It's my principal linear power supply, and that thing is a beauty. And all this stuff is pretty vintage. You know, by going very slowly, I've managed to lift this off without damaging anything. So, ta-da! We have this off. And here we're going. We're waiting for the beep to come up. And there it is. Leave it for an inexpensive Chinese solder sucker to beep loudly so that it can be heard in several states. So, here we go. We'll start with pin 1. And what we do is we rest it on here until we get meltage. Alright, it took a long time for me to get that memory chip out of the logic board. Now that it's out, I have my chip reading program, which is from XGECU. I'm not going to try and pronounce it XGECU, but I've got that here now. It is set to read a DS1225 chip, and we're going to go ahead and read that guy and see if we lost our data. And here we go. Oh baby, it's there. Take a look. Our calibration data has been saved, because now we have it in the computer and we are going to immediately save a copy of it. Now we have it saved. Now I get to tell you a story. First of all, when I went to get a chip, I went to get a DS1225 modern version. I ordered it from Mouser, and Mouser took the money, put it on hold afterwards, and then when I contacted Mouser, they told me that the new owners of Dallas will not allow Dallas chips to be sold to individual purchasers. So I started to freak out because I've heard stories about the FRAM chips and the problems that they cause. So Mouser went hunting for me, and what Mouser found was the exact chip we needed in a compatible form. So instead of a Dallas, what we have here is a M48Z as in Zulu 18-100 PC1. It looks like the chip. It's a little heavier actually. And they designed it so that the battery doesn't tick and start running until you write to the chip for the first time, which we are about to do. So let's read the chip that I just put in here. And it looks like it's got basic stuff in there, some kind of a pattern to make sure that the chip works. So what we're going to do is we'll open up that binary file. There it is with its whopping 8K of data. It's all there. Now what do we need to do? We need to write to this chip. It's set to a 1225 and that's compatible. Let's go ahead and program it in. And it's done. Now just for snicks, we're going to read it and see if anything changes. It did not. Guess what? We now have a new chip for our oscilloscope and it's ready to go. Now it's time to solder a socket onto that board to put the chip in and we're ready to finish this scope. Now that we have the chip out and the new chip programmed, we're going to take this beautiful little 28-pin socket with round pins. We're going to insert it into the board like this. And we're going to solder that sucker in. And we're done. And as you can see, it's beautifully soldered in, nice and even, and we are ready to install the new chip. The chip is in, it's secure, and if we have to remove it, we don't have to go through a torturous exercise in soldering. There's one other thing I need to show you. You probably won't be able to see it, but I'm going to try and get it into the shot anyway. This cap right here is cracked. If you look very carefully, let me see if I can focus it in with the crack closer. Oh yeah, you can see it right there. That cap is cracked. Now, I don't have a 0.1 laying around on surface mount 1206, which is what that is. So I'm going to lift it. I'm going to put in a monolithic cap. This is going to be a boatload of fun to get to fit on the board because it is much bigger than the 1206 surface mount device. But we've got to do it. So first thing we got to do is we got to lift the cracked cap off the board. And to do that, I need some flux. Toss a needle nozzle onto this syringe. And we're going to put a tiny bit on there. Don't worry, I cleaned the board both sides before I'm going to put it back into the unit, but I need to do this now. Okay, we've got a little bit on there. Get my tweezers ready here. Take that out. Yep, comes off in halves. So that thing was broken open and that would not have been good. cap looks like it bridges between pin 14 and of the chip and this jumper here for normal versus debug mode. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to eyeball a measurement. Okay, we're fairly close. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim these leads back a little. Go in my pile of leads. See the bent leads? That's going to make it easier to attach to the board. So, on with the tweezers. Let's add just a tiny bit of solder to each of those joints. And being the perfectionist that I am, I will come back at a later date and install a 1206 service mount cap. But right now this will get the scope running, and this video is overdue as it is, so the faster I could do that, the less likely it is that you're going to be grumpier that the video is already late. Okay, that's installed on that side. Now I just have to install the other leg, which I will bend into place. Let's take it down like that. And scooch it over. It's in place. Ooh, better be careful. Looks good. My meter's on continuity. Let's switch it over to capacitance and make sure that I get a reading. Because before I was getting nothing, which makes sense because it was broken open. Yeah, we're in. Okay, we have the scope in here. It's plugged to power. The board is temporarily hooked up. Well, here goes nothing again. Good news, we have power. Now we're waiting to see if we get diagnostics, because I'm not seeing any right now, and that has me concerned. Wait, here they go. I don't like what I'm seeing. Things are happening spontaneously that should not be happening. I do not like what I'm seeing. We're going to shut off the scope and I'm going to take a look inside. Okay, guess what? I did a little bit of looking and I forgot to connect the front keypad flat ribbon PCB that we were so worried about before. It is now reconnected. Let's see what happens. We'll turn this baby on, and that's a much better looking diagnostic. Everything is working exactly as it should, and we're up and running. 2 volts, 500 microseconds. Let's put a kilohertz in there, and let's center the, just to make sure, we are measuring exactly 1 kilohertz. Now what happens if we were to do delta V and see what we get with that? Let's put that baby right there. Exactly 4 volts. And that's what I'm putting in, is 1 kilohertz at 4 volts. Let's put something into channel 2 that's the same. Let's turn off the cursors. Let's move this one up. We're looking good. Let's turn on channels 3 and 4 and raise those guys up a little bit. Here's channel 3. I'm going to put channel 2 into channel 3, see what happens. And within the scope of what we have there. Let's cut our voltage on the unit to 1 volt. And we'll have to swap because I cut it on channel 1. Let's put this over here, put this here. That's 1 volt. Channel 3 looks beautiful. Let's try channel 4. Let's turn on channel 4, turn off channel 3. My friends, that is a perfectly healthy oscilloscope. This project is complete. And now it's time for me to button this baby up. One quick thing I thought I'd show you before we buttoned up the scope is that I prepared a sticker showing all of the substitute values for capacitors that were used in this project, and made a note so that anybody who might open this up in the future will see that I serviced it in November of 2025. Alright, now I'd like to show you the rogues gallery of components removed from the 2465B scope. The big one is, of course, the 36-year, 4-month-old Dallas chip that I just don't know how it survived so long. 36-year-old capacitors, including one REFA, which was on the edge of blowing up when I removed it from the scope. It's a good thing I did it when I did. So, the scope is tested, the scope is fixed, the scope is now in a position of honor on my workbench. To learn more about the Oscilloscope Battle Royal and the technology involved in making it happen, please check my Patreon page on November 8 at 5 p.m. Central Time. People who are patrons will be able to download the scripts necessary to drive the microcontrollers, and will get a quick lesson on how it all happened. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and like. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. May you have joy unspeakable and full of glory and the peace that passes all understanding.